Got it. Good evening, everybody. It is 6:35 on Wednesday, August 30th. Welcome to everybody for this, really, I think, our formal launch of our dashboard. We put the dashboard out for public consumption on August 15th. And now this is the city team, and I'm going to give an opportunity for the city folks to introduce themselves, to introduce you to the dashboard, let you know about all the different components of the dashboard. The city team has a presentation that probably will be about maybe 30 to 45 minutes tops. I'm going to ask that people hold their questions until the end of the presentation. There will be plenty of time for questions and answers at the end of the presentation. So I'm just going to start. Want to introduce myself. My name is Christine Elo. Proudly grew up in the city of Cambridge. I now serve as the police commissioner, and I have been with the city of Cambridge Police Department now for 28 years. And I'm going to just pick out all different people from the city of Cambridge team. I'm going to start on my left with Jeremy Warnick. If you could just introduce yourself.
Hi, good evening. My name is Jeremy Warnick. I was formerly at the police department, worked there for just over 9 years, and most recently moved over to the city's communications office. I was intimately involved in supporting this project from a communication perspective, and happy to be here and meet everyone.
Thank you. I'm now going to go to my right, Walter Heffernan.
Good evening. Hello, my name is Walter Heffernan. I'm the Deputy Director of Public Safety IT. And the Public Safety IT team's role in this was to facilitate providing the data that populated this dashboard. And we're really excited as a team to have been able to have delivered this to you. Thank you.
Yep, appreciate that, Walter. Sophie Broberg.
Good afternoon or good evening. My name is Sophie Broberg. I'm a project manager with Public Safety IT, and I've been with the city for about 4 years and been working on this project for about 2 years.
Thank you so much. Superintendent Pauline Wells.
Good evening, everyone. I too grew up in the city of Cambridge, and I have been a police officer for a little bit over 30 years, believe it or not. And this has been a long time coming, and we're so looking forward to talking with folks about it. Thanks.
From the city, Patrick McCormick.
Good evening. My name is Patrick McCormick. I'm the Chief Information Officer for the city, and we were pleased to have a role in this collaborative effort. Our open data team and some other folks in the city's IT department helped develop the application that presents the data in the dashboard.
Thank you. Bucko Yam.
Good evening, everybody. Buckley, I'm Deputy Superintendent. I've been with the police department for 28 years. I'm in charge of day operations and the traffic unit. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean Norton.
Hey, everybody. Sean Norton, Sergeant with the Cambridge Police. I'm a supervisor of the crime analysis unit. I've been a police officer just about 9 years. Cambridge native, graduate of Renton Latin, and been working on this project for about 2 years as well.
Fred Cabral.
Good evening, everybody. Fred Cabral, born and raised city of Cambridge. Cambridge's Latin alum as well. 20 years at the Cambridge Police Department. I'm the superintendent in charge of our support services division, which is our criminal investigation section, family social justice section, our administrative section of the police department.
Thank you. Manisha Tiberwal.
Good afternoon and evening, everybody. My name is Manisha. I'm the Director of Planning, Budget and Personnel here for the Cambridge Police Department.
Thank you. Jamie Barrett.
Good evening, I'm Jamie Barrett. I'm the Director of Clinical Support Services at Cambridge Police.
So I do see Brian Core on the line. Brian, I know that you're not part of this team, but do you want to introduce yourself?
Okay. All right, thank you, Commissioner. Good evening. My name is Brian Core, and I'm the Executive Director of the Police Review and Advisory Board for the City of Cambridge. And obviously our board is very interested in this work and the dashboard increasing transparency for the community. But as Commissioner just said, we have not been involved in developing or creating the dashboard.
Thank you so much. So as I started, and you see from all the introductions, this was a complex 2-year project that really had a lot of different people involved in it. And we really needed all of these different voices and expertise to bring this dashboard to a reality. This is something that was promised under Commissioner Bard. It turned out to be a really huge, complex undertaking, as I said, that took over 2 years to actually do. And we're really proud of ourselves having this dashboard ready. We think it's one of the few in the state, and we really don't think that there's another dashboard in the state that provides this level of detail around demographics with arrests, citations, summons. And we're going to go through all that and talk about the definitions as we move forward. But again, really excited to bring our accountability, transparency, and really commitment to integrity and being a 21st century police department to that next level with this dashboard. One of the things that I saw when I was looking at the dashboard, hold on, let me just admit some more people, is that there are some things that were really exciting, and I'll talk about kind of a little bit of an amateur analysis that we did on our own. We are not analysts. We're going to be working with the Center for Police Equity, CPE, and I'll talk more about them as I go through my presentation. They are going to be the team that's doing the analytics of our data and then developing some harm reduction strategies for us. I would really encourage you to not only spend some time really looking through all the different elements of this dashboard, but also log on to CPE's website and take a look at the amazing work that they're doing with law enforcement agencies across the country to reduce disparities, really reimagine public safety, making police more transparent and accountable. So really excited to be working with them. Sophie, can we bring up our PowerPoint, please?
Absolutely.
And why don't we go to the introduction slide if we could?
There we are. Can everyone see that now?
I see it. Yep. So this dashboard, the introduction, you're going to be able to see information on Cambridge Police arrests, summons, citations, and use of force. And as I said, this dashboard right here, this is just our first iteration. We are anticipating that this dashboard is going to evolve. I want it to be a lot more interactive. But again, this is just the first attempt at this, and we really are hoping for something a lot more interactive as we move forward. Next slide, please, Sophie. So just as far as definitions go, and you will see these words when you're looking at our dashboard, an arrest warrant is an order issued by the court, right? Which orders officers, if we encounter somebody who has an arrest warrant during a call for service, that is a non-discretionary arrest. That means officers do not have a choice when they encounter somebody out in the street that we have found that has an arrest warrant. That means they need to go in front of a judge to answer to some kind of criminal charges. So an arrest warrant can happen in a number of different ways. A lot of times after we arrest somebody, they could be released on bail. And then their next day, there is an arraignment. If they fail to show up for that arraignment, an arrest warrant is then issued for their arrest, which means if we encounter them, we need to bring them to the court to answer to the criminal charges that are in front of the court. The summons process, that is an application. It's something that we use instead of an arrest. In the city of Cambridge, one of the things that we've said for over a decade is that we want alternatives to arrest. We really want arrest to be that last possible interaction when everything else has failed. We want that to be our last interaction if we have to. I mean, we really at all want to avoid arrest if we can, but as you'll see through this presentation, sometimes we cannot avoid arrest because they're mandated by mass general law, or because like in a situation with an arrest warrant, or because the crime is one of violence where we are mandated by law to arrest. But you'll see with our numbers, our arrests have gone down pretty dramatically, and our summonses actually have also gone down, but we're issuing more summonses than we are arrests. And the citation is also from the state, and that is when we pull cars over for motor vehicle violations. Next slide, please. So the goal of the dashboard, quite frankly, is to give the public deeper insight into the Cambridge Police Department, and also for us to take a deeper look at ourselves. We've done a lot, as I said before, when it comes to alternatives to arrest. When it comes to engaging with some of our more vulnerable populations, we're looking for alternatives instead of an arrest. But now we want to look a little deeper at our arrests, at the quality of our arrests, and just see how we can better serve our community. And again, our goal is to, number one, take a deeper look at us, and also give the community a deeper look at what our interactions look like. Long-term goal for the dashboard, as I said, we want a more dynamic and robust interactive dashboard as we move forward. Next slide, please. So you can the data that's contained in this dashboard is, from 13 years ago. So we have 13 years of data up until the most recent quarter, and it will be updated quarterly. And the dashboard is available at these links. So again, it's pretty easy to access this dashboard if you go to the Cambridge Police website or access any of these other links. Next slide, please. And I believe this is where Sophie is going to give her demo. So Sophie, I'm going to turn it over to you, my friend.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. All right, can you all see the dashboard up on my screen? Okay, great. So I'm just going to give a brief introduction. I'll keep it short. So the dashboard is organized into 7 tabs here, and 3 of those are informational tabs. So the About tab, which is the landing page that you first see, then the Definitions tab and the Feedback tab are the informational tabs. And then Arrests, Citations, Summons, and Use of Force Report are the data tabs here. So the About tab, oh, and it wants me to reload it. The About tab there is going to be, like I said, what you land into. It gives you information on what date the dashboard was updated, and then what data is contained there, an introductory letter from the commissioner, and then an About This Dashboard section that describes some of the data and then provides links to additional resources, the annual reports and BridgeStat reports, additionally NIBRS data and Massachusetts citation information, and then provides another link to the CPD use of force report. So then the second informational tab would be the Definitions tab. And this tab provides some context and definitions to the terms that are contained in the dashboard, as well as context around the different race, ethnicity, gender options for each of the data sets. And I'll get into that a little bit more once we get into the data tabs. But as you scroll through, you have the opportunity to see different definitions that are used throughout the dashboard. And then as you can see here, I'll cover it a little bit more, but race for arrests and citations is different. And that's conforming to state and national standards that are different for the collection of that data. And then it provides as well a copy of the Massachusetts Uniform Citation Form. And this is what officers are filling out when they're issuing a citation. The Feedback tab then is the last informational tab there, and that links you to a Contact Us tool that allows you to provide feedback or questions, comments, or to report issues with the dashboard, and then to provide a description of the issue. It can be submitted anonymously, but you can provide name and email if you'd like to be contacted after that. And I know that there's been a prompt response when we have received feedback through this form. All right, and then I'll get into the data. So the first data tab here is the Arrest tab. And each of the 3 data tabs, arrest, citations, and summonses, are very similar. They contain a brief intro, and then as well, you're going to see the date that it was last updated and what data is contained there. And then they contain a filter side panel right here, where you can filter down different categories of data. So you can either filter out categories or filter to just that category. The charts all automatically update once you apply filters. And then under each chart, you'll see a brief about this chart section describing what you're seeing there. And then there are filter reminders where you can click and see what data you're looking at exactly. And if something's been filtered out, it's not going to appear in this list. There also is the opportunity to switch from a year view to a month view, which becomes really handy if you're going to go and look at something like the past 12 months. And there also is a button here to clear your filters. Oh, as well, before I jump away from that, there also is a reminder of which filters were applied. And that's really useful because as you scroll down, any of these filters apply to any of the graphs. So as you scroll down, like I said, you will see that these are filtered. And so sometimes it's helpful to remember that you had applied a filter. The other thing as you scroll down that you'll see is that there is a toggle under some of these graphs to show the totals for the time period. So if you toggle that on, you're going to see, in this case, arrests by race for the selected criteria being that I have a time filter on, and then I'm going to see the totals for that entire time period. And so for arrests, we have arrests over time by year, and I'll clear that so it's a little bit more. Arrests over time by year, arrest demographics by race and by gender, by ethnicity, and then by neighborhood. And so this is laid out really similar to the citations tab. And then I'll kind of talk about some of the differences. So moving on to the citations tab, you again have the same structure, a filter side panel. The choices here are a little different. So like I mentioned a little earlier, so race and ethnicity are tracked differently for citations than they are for arrests and summonses. So citations actually don't have a separate ethnicity category, it's merged in. So you won't see the option to filter by ethnicity, it's merged into the race category, and that's conforming to the Massachusetts Uniform Citation Standards. But what you do see with citations that you don't see with the rest is the result of the citation. So there are different results that can happen from a citation, and those give you the option to filter. And then it's laid out in a really similar structure. So you have citations over time, and then by year, by race, again with toggles to see totals, and by gender and result, over time by result, and then by race and result, and by neighborhood. And then moving on to the summonses data tab, this tab is a little shorter. It just contains one visualization, but it still offers you the opportunity to filter. And then it contains the same about this chart section. It also links to more additional resources about summonses. And this graph compares summonses versus arrests over time. So like I said, it's just the one graph on this tab, but you still have the opportunity to filter. Also to note, as you hover over, you can actually see the exact numbers. So you can see what year you're looking at and then the number of, in this case, arrests that occurred in that year. The final data tab is the use of force report tab. And so that's providing a PDF viewer to the most recent use of force report published by the department, which was published in June of this year. And I'll let the commissioner speak to what the long-term goals are for this, but for now it's a report viewer, and that contains a variety of visualizations, and it also contains some different time periods. So some of these graphs do go back to 2013 and some are more recent. And that is the demo of the dashboard. So this right back to the landing page. And I will switch back to the PowerPoint then. Oh, Commissioner, you're muted.
I was muted. Thank you so much. Yeah, just go to that feedback slide. So just if I can just go back to what Sophie was talking about with our use of force. Right now, the format that we had that in is in a final report that we publish annually. I really want that to be a tab where you can, so it's a lot more interactive and we can get a lot more information. So moving forward, one of the pieces that we want to see is a lot more information on that use of force tab, similar, so you can toggle through similar the way we can do it for arrests and citations. So just know that. So the feedback tab, one of the things that I'm really requesting, or we are really requesting, is that if you have feedback for this dashboard, suggestions, anything that you'd like to see that you're not seeing, although you can mention it here, giving us some detailed, like a description about your feedback using this feedback tab will really allow us to digest that instead of just taking, whatever notes that we can take during this meeting. So that feedback tab, we really will be, immersing ourselves in that and figuring out, what our residents are saying, what they'd like to see, and how we can kind of have this particular dashboard evolve, in its current form. So before we get a new record management system. So I just want to say, please use the feedback tab. The next piece, if we can go to the next slide. So one of the things that's really important is this partnership with their Center for Police Equity. I mean, in their, right off their website, their North Star is about protecting, empowering, supporting vulnerable communities, particularly Black and Brown communities, to redesign, their public safety systems. CPE provides decision makers with data, stories, and relationships to facilitate change that's bold, innovative, and lasting. They're going to use this Justice Navigator tool that provides targeted analysis of our data, including use of force incidents, vehicle stops, pedestrian stops. And their platform allows a range of resources to help communities and law enforcement monitor and really redesign our public safety. So I'm really excited for the partnership with Police Equity. As we were looking at this data, there was a few things that stood out to me that I want to talk about, but also just I want to reiterate the fact that I am not an analyst. So this is really an amateur, kind of attempt at analyzing this data as we go through the next couple of slides. And I just want you to understand that. We tried to pull out, I wanted a little bit more context to what we were seeing. So if I can say, why don't we move to the next slide, another CPE, just you can read that. And then partnership CPE again. So go to the preliminary analysis. So when we're talking about arrest data, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, it's collected during our booking process. And all of this is self-reported, not officer reported. So when we're booking somebody, we'll ask them, your name, your age, your ethnicity, your race, languages spoken, your weight, of your height, and all of that is self-reported. So we don't verify. If they say I'm 6'3" and 215 pounds, then we say, okay, they're 6'3" and 215 pounds. We don't actually weigh them to make sure they're 215 pounds. And this demographic information, this conforms to national standards through the FBI's National Incident Database Reporting System. That's just a national way for police agencies across the country to compile information, so we're all speaking in the same language. And that's also in Massachusetts courts. Next slide, please. So the arrest figures include arrest warrants, which make up a pretty large portion of our arrests. Over the past 5 years, more than 1/3, and this is part of our immature analysis, of our arrests were warrant arrests. We can go to the next slide, Sophie. So for me, this slide was really encouraging. So there's some, concerns that I have about this slide, and then also some things that are encouraging. As I said in the beginning, we moved away from real traditional law enforcement practices when it came to how we respond to calls for service in our community. We've been working really diligently over the past decade to work collaboratively with other service providers and city agencies to identify, are more vulnerable in our community, whether that be people who are unhoused, suffering from substance use disorder, mental health issues, and also in our marginalized communities. We really wanted to shift away from arrest, which was our primary way of engaging when a law was broken, to more, how do we solve root causes of crime? How do we help a person and help a family, as opposed to putting them into the criminal justice system? So it was really encouraging for me to see the arrest numbers sharply decline since 2010. Next slide, please. What concerns me, though, is although our percentages of arrests have gone down, the percentages of people who identify as Black or African American, that percentage has gone up. So that's something that I really want some more information on about what's going on there. And we're really gonna rely on CPE to provide us with that analysis. What does it actually mean? One of the things that I found is, let me see, looking at this. Why don't we go to the next slide, Sophie? All right, so arrest discretion. So we analyzed, we're gonna break down 2022 arrests a little bit more. So just to understand arrests, existing arrest warrants. So if we are engaging with somebody, one of the things that we always do is we check a person when we respond to a call for service for if they have any arrest warrants. If they do have an active arrest warrant, the officer does not have discretion about whether or not to take that person into custody. That person has either didn't show up for a court date, or didn't show up for a court date, quite frankly, and we have to bring them to the court. So that means we arrest them. More likely than not, they're not going to get bail because they didn't show up for court, and then they'll be brought to court the next day. Abuse prevention orders, so domestic violence 209A orders. If you have an active 209A order and we get a call and somebody has violated that 209A order, that is we do not have discretion. That is a shall arrest. In those situations. And you can probably remember in probably the early 90s, there was a number of homicides involving domestic violence that really changed how police respond to victims of domestic violence, and really made arrest and a shall arrest, where it used to be, go cool off for a few minutes. That's no longer the case. Domestic violence, just incidents where there's no 209A, if we can identify the aggressor, arrest is the preferred response, especially if there has been violence. If it's just a domestic dispute, there's some discretion. But if there has been like an actual battery, we have low discretion in there, and that is the preferred response. An aggravated assault, believe it or not, this might not be arrestable. So an aggravated assault might be, you might have an assault and battery where somebody's like punched in the face and maybe they get a black eye. That would be a simple like assault and battery. An aggravated would be something where it's like a serious injury or something like that. Maybe it involved a weapon, some fear, some intimidation. That would aggravate it. That's a low discretionary call. One of the things that an officer would take into consideration is there a chance for further violence? And if we are worried about further violence, more likely than not, we're going to take that person into custody. And then operating under the influence, that's also a really low discretion event, and arrest is the preferred response. To the next slide, please. So interesting, and breaking it out a little bit, I thought it offered me some comfort, but I still know that there's a number of different ways to interpret data. Looking at the preliminary analysis, and again, I know that you can do all different things with numbers, 75% of arrests of white individuals were no discretion. So that either means a warrant, it could have been a violation of a restraining order, or low discretion, where it could have been a domestic violence incident, or it could have been one of those incidents where I talked about the aggravated assault and battery. 46% of arrests of white people, officers did not have any discretion about whether or not they took that person into custody. They had to. And when we broke down arrests of Black individuals, you see the numbers there. 73 were no discretion or low discretion, and 43% of those arrests, officers did not have a choice and they had to make that arrest. Next slide, please. Again, looking at it, looking at residency, 55% of arrests, again, this is just 2022, the latest year that we had complete information, 55% of arrests of white individuals were not residents. 84% of white residents arrests, they were non-discretion or low discretion arrests. So I think that just says the choices were limited. And you can see the numbers for Black residents. And for me, that offered a degree of comfort with the concerns about upping the percentage of Black individuals that were arrested. Next slide, please. And then this just looking at the analysis by age and race, and you can just see what that is. But you can also pull these numbers out on your own as you're looking through our dashboard. I think what stands out for me the most is probably that 51 arrests of people between the ages of 29 and 32. That's pretty interesting. All right, next slide, please. So summons data is collected during our summons process. And again, that could be we respond to a call. It might be a drinking in public call. It could be a simple assault call. It could be a shoplifting call. Those are situations where arrest is not a preferred response and we'd rather summons the person in. So summons data is collected during our summons process. Demographics collected during this process are all self-reported. So we have to fill out a report similar to what we do with an incident. And through that, we'll take that information and fill out the information to file a summons to, order that person into court in front of a judge to answer to the criminal charges. And then the demographic information that we collect for summonses also is national standards. Next slide. And this is the summons process. So you can see summons versus arrest. And for me, this slide really points to us going to alternatives other than the formal criminal justice system to deal with issues, right? So for issues that don't require an arrest, we're either summonsing in or we're finding alternatives to the criminal justice system. With particularly our youth, we're looking at community-based resolutions to criminal complaints whenever we possibly can. And I'm really encouraged again by this slide that says a lot more, well, at least my amateur analysis feels like a lot more of our situations are resolved through community-based processes than they were in the past. So citation data is collected when a motorist or a cyclist is cited by the Cambridge Police. And demographics for this are not self-reported and really interesting. And we're trying to get the background in this. Officers do not ask the race, the gender of a person when we stop somebody. We're really, and it's not on your license. So your gender might be, I think even that might be changing in the state. But we really, officers just guess, and I don't know what they'd call me if they pulled me over, but it really is just a guess as far as what you think their race or ethnicity is. And you can see race and gender data collected conforms to the standard required by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Registry of Motor Vehicle, which does not provide for separate ethnicity data, but also includes Hispanic as one of 6 race code options. So it is limited. And, in citations, again, pretty dramatic decline. And I want to also say that reflects our data-driven approach around citations. We don't have any quotas in the city of Cambridge when it comes to citations. We deploy our resources according to what the data says, where the high accident locations are. We want our officers to focus in on the areas in our city where the most accidents are happening, and our focus is on education. And when we have to write citations, we do, but education is really our preferred response. And you can see the numbers there. I think in next slide, Sophie, when it came to this one, it's not as disproportionate. And when I think about that disproportionality piece, what I think about is population percentages. So in the city of Cambridge, for example, I think our Black population, or people who identify as Black, is somewhere around 10.9%. So when you think about arrests, right, of people who identify as Black as being 55%, when, again, thinking about population data, and I know that's not a perfect way to analyze data, but that's really the benchmark that I have. So when we think about citation data, and in 2023 so far, our percentage of Black motorists that we've cited is at 16.5%. So not as disparate as our arrest data, but still something we want to keep an eye on, and also work with the Center for Police Equity on our harm reduction strategies around citations also. And that is my presentation. So Sophie, I think you can take this down. And the rest of our time, quite frankly, is questions. And we have a lot of time. We have until 8:30, but we don't have to stay until 8:30. So I want to open it up for questions. And thank you, everybody, for coming. You can put questions in the chat or just raise your hands. The frequency of the dashboard to be updated from John Hawkinson. Who can answer that from the PSIT or ITD?
Sure, I can answer it if you'd like. We've decided on a quarterly update for citations, summons, and arrests. And at this point, where we're stuck from a technology perspective and a process, and where we are in the project, we had to do an annual update for use of force.
Thank you, Walter. Thank you, John.
Sure. Sorry, thank you, Christine and Walter. Just to clarify, so what's the lag time? So I assume quarterly, and then it's going to be some period of time after the end of the quarter before the data is updated. It might be helpful if the dashboard actually just said that, because when you look at it, it kind of gives you have to wonder, oh, June 30th. Well, that was kind of a while ago. So setting expectations might be helpful. But what is the lag time expected on those quarterly updates?
It's a little more than a month. A month after the end of the quarter. Yep.
Thank you, John. Does anybody need to have no, Beverly, thank you for being here. Also from the Police Review and Advisory Board. You do not need, you can just click on the link and it should open right up. And if you're having any issues, what are we saying about that, Sophie, if you have issues logging on?
If you have issues logging on, I would email the PIO email. I think that's probably the best one to go to.
Okay, thank you. When I first heard about this and signed up about maybe 6 weeks or 2 months ago, I was told I had to have a password. So I wrote it down. I have a password, but that I don't need that. I can throw it out.
That's correct. You can throw it out.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner.
One less password you have to worry about.
Thank you.
I think the password was before we went public with the database, so we could review it as we were doing the analysis and the was it Q&A, not Q&A, testing of the quality.
The quality assurance.
Yeah, QA, quality assurance, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Hi, I'll come in with a question. Thank you so much for putting this presentation together. It's been extremely exciting to see the dashboard come to fruition. So my congratulations to CPD on that big milestone. I would love to hear a bit more about the partnership with the Center for Policing Equity and just what that partnership will look like, sort of the engagement going forward. Will they be presenting on our data at some point? Like, how do you see that playing out?
Yeah, I'm really excited. And I actually tried to get them to come to the meeting tonight, but they were all tied up. So I'm looking for a little bit more of a window for when we can actually expect something that we can give to the community. And I haven't received that. So we partnered with them. We started, maybe the agreement was in June. It is totally free to be working with them. They were happy to be working with Cambridge. They're really excited about the level of data and the detail of data that we have provided them. And they're going to be coming out, and they really do work with agencies around developing harm reduction strategies and how to, and I still want to kind of know a little bit more about how they help reimagine policing and help police departments and communities really kind of unite together. So I'm really excited. I think for us in the city, this is our first go around with this too. So I'm learning as much around data analysis and harm reduction strategies as you all are. We're going through this together. So I wish I had more information on what they're going to be doing, but I do anticipate there's going to be a lot more from them in future meetings. And thank you so much for being here, Alex. And I see Fred Cabral's hand.
So one of the other things we're looking at from CPE is, because they work with other agencies across the country, we wanted to see how our numbers measure up with other agencies. And I think that's going to be an important part of what the data is and where we're trying to go.
So really, just so, and I hate to just burst our bubble on that, they do not do comparison data from what they told me. They will not compare Cambridge to somewhere else. They will do what they call a regression analysis. But again, I want to be really careful. I'm way out of my lane already just saying that. But there is some reason why they will not compare Cambridge to other municipalities, but they will develop some sort of an assessment of Cambridge based on the data that we provided. I was really looking for that comparison too, about how we stood up against other people, but it might be another question for them when we have them as part of a public meeting to talk about why they don't want to compare us to other municipalities across the country. There is a reason for it, and I don't have it right on the tip of my tongue.
This has been great.
Thank you, Beverly. Yeah, we're really excited.
Are you going to offer another one of these meetings?
You know, I suppose we absolutely can. I would like to offer another meeting when I have something additional to add to the conversation. But if people think these are, well, actually what we did do is we recorded this. So if you have friends that didn't hear it, you'll have access to this. And again, if there are other questions, you know, we have some time. I'm not going to hold this call until 8:30 unless people have things that they want to discuss. But I really just appreciate the opportunity to start this conversation in our community, and really excited about this increased level of transparency. You know, the Cambridge Police Department is committed to transparency, accountability, really healing and building trust with all of our community members. And this is just one additional step in that direction. I do feel like we are one of the premier police departments in the country. Not perfect, of course, and we're always seeking to improve. And this is one of those initiatives that will help with that. I also want to acknowledge Steve Megahayes, who came in. Steve, sorry I didn't see you earlier on the call. Thank you for being here.
I have one more question, Commissioner Elo, if you don't mind.
Of course.
Recently, I came across the Harvard University Police Dashboard, which I had not seen before, and actually found it to be pretty impressive. And there's a few things that they have on their dashboard that aren't currently on ours, including like calls for service, field stops, and personnel complaints. So I was wondering, A, have you seen that? And B, like, are there other types of data that you hope to add in the future along those lines?
Thank you for that. So absolutely, we are comparing. I'm looking at other dashboards. Oh, we need to have this here. Let's have this. Let's have that. We want to have, I'm going to tell you, Cambridge always wants to do everything A++, right? We want to have the best dashboard. So we will be, you know, taking from Harvard. We want to figure out what else is out there. And I see Jeremy's hand, so he definitely have some thoughts. Jeremy?
Yeah, and I just want to add to that in terms of, you know, so that's within their dashboard. One of the things that we've tried to build out is a transparency portal. So within that transparency portal, you'll see this dashboard, but there's other additional information in there that we've received over the years that was commonly requested. Demographics of the department, number of complaints against the department, that information is within the transparency portal. And that's another area that we are looking to evolve as we go along. So I'd recommend, in addition to the dashboard, looking at the transparency portal and some of the components of that.
Great, thank you so much.
Of course. Wish I had some filler stuff as we're waiting for people to ask questions. I don't want to cut people off if they're still thinking about things that they haven't said, but I also don't want to drag this out any longer than it really has to be. So I think if there are no other questions, you know, we're going to end this meeting. But again, please use that feedback tab. If people, you know, I'm pretty easy to find and get in touch with. So send me an email if you have some thoughts or questions for me. And if people would like to see another meeting to talk about the dashboard, I'd be happy to have that. Again, I want to do that when we have some more information to give to people. About the dashboard, maybe the analysis from the Center for Police Equity. So with that, everybody, happy end of August, end of summer. Looking forward to September. And yeah, thank you all for being here. And I'm sure we'll be seeing each other again. Have a great night. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Pauline, did you have something?
No, I'm good.
Oh, all right.
Thanks very much.
Everybody, have a great night.
Good night.
Thanks.